These people who are signed in like you have.
Hi, everybody.
Hello, Karen.
Do we have no video for this?
Well,
You should. You turn on your cameras.
my camera's turned on.
My start video is crossed out. It won't let me because the
Okay.
host has stopped it.
Yeah, it says can't start your video because the host has stopped it.
All right. Let's see. I think
Dang, and I almost got a haircut too.
we'll get there. So we're using the webinar function, which is a little different. And I think I'm a co-host, so I should be able. Scott's hosting, so it might take him, but let me just see. Never had to do this before. Hold on.
I think we're waiting for Lee anyway. I don't see. Oh, there he is. I take it back. We're not waiting for Lee.
I don't know if you can hear me, but this is April Foster.
Yep, we can hear you.
For some reason, the video's not working. I don't know if you can see me, but I can't see you guys.
Right, we're working on video for. Oh, there's Leela. Sorry, Layla. I pronounced your name wrong.
No problem. We've never had this happen before, so we'll figure it out. Just stand by. Just one moment. Just one moment.
Well, maybe while we're working on the video, if we could call the meeting to order. It's 4:01 p.m. This is the meeting of the Manzanita Planning Commission. First order on our agenda, first order of business is to approve the minutes from the September 20th meeting. And I noticed one tiny thing that needs a correction. But I'm going to open it to the rest of the Planning Commission. Are there any other additions, corrections, or problems with the way the minutes were prepared?
None as far as I could see, Karen.
Okay, maybe if Planning Commission members want to unmute yourselves, we can.
Jenna doesn't have any changes.
Okay, thank you, Jenna. I have just one little note on page 2 under item F. It's just, this is so minor, but under questions from the commissioners, in the third line down, it says the replatting and tract E, and I think it should be replatting of tract E. And other than that, that was the only quibble I have.
Karen,
Yeah, hi, Phil.
hi. I found something on page 3. It's the last sentence on 7 Transportation Systems Plan TSP.
Mm-hmm.
She informed the commission that there will be a workshop early next year for them to provide feedback.
Okay, got it. Thank you. Okay, anything else? If not, I would hear a motion to approve the minutes as corrected.
Would approve the minutes as being corrected.
I'll second that.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, say no. Okay, minutes are approved as corrected.
Hey, Karen, this is Scott.
Yeah, hi, Scott.
Go ahead and see if you can turn your video on now.
There I am.
Good job, Scott. Thank you.
Woohoo.
Wahoo.
Go Scott.
It's so nice to see everybody's faces. Man, I'm sitting in the dark, aren't I? Jeez. See if I can get some more light on me. Sorry, I'm just going to be in the dark today. Okay, on to the next item, which is audience participation. Are there any members of the audience that have like to make comments or questions? It looks like the only people here are participants today. Is that correct?
No, actually, we're using a webinar function for Zoom.
Okay.
So participants are in a separate space. There's 7 participants online right now, and I do not see any hands raised.
Okay, could we take a roll call of the participants just so that we have a record of who attended today?
Sure. I have Alex Kazanis, Bruce Kubert or K. Ubert, Deb Tinnen, Joe Newhouse, Leela Salmon, Lindsay Nutzer, and Mark Kutster. Sorry if I just butchered your last names.
Okay, thanks. Okay, so no comments from anybody, no hands are raised? Okay, excellent. Then let's move on. We have a update on the transportation plan. I think the last time we heard about this plan was at our last meeting in September. Is that right? And we have Kara Hall here to talk to us about what's happened since September and what the next steps are, correct?
Yes, thank you, Karen. Well, it's great to be back to give you all an update on what we've been working on since the last time I joined you all. So let me share my, it doesn't look like I'm able to share my screen. Let's see. Layla, I'm not sure if we can enable that quickly. Okay, thank you.
Either I will or Scott's going to have to. He's hosting, so he's in charge today.
While that's getting underway, the main reason I wanted to join and give you all an update is because we're actually getting started on some community conversations that are happening this week. So each of the 3 communities has a conversation scheduled, and the one for Manzanita is actually scheduled for Wednesday evening. So I wanted to give you all a little bit of a teaser and just ask you all to help us share that. So it looks like screen sharing is enabled now. Okay, awesome. So diving right in here, let's see if I got just a quick update. So really what I want to do is provide a status update, share a little bit of a project teaser, because that's really what our community engagement outreach is focused on. We have developed quite a few projects, both for the region and the city of Manzanita, that we'll be asking for input on, and then just share a little bit about what you can look for in the coming months. So for the status update, just want to highlight where we are in the process and then what this next outreach component is going to inform moving forward. So this visual here is kind of an overview of the process as a whole. We are working towards a TSP that can be adopted by the City Council for each of the 3 cities. And right now, we've completed all of the items shown in green there. So we have, like I mentioned, developed a list of projects. There are about 80 projects total, and that breaks down about 20 per city and 20 projects on US 101 or within Tillamook County's jurisdiction. So quite a few projects being considered. And the remaining pieces here are really just the funding component. So determining how much funding is expected to be available for transportation over the next 20 years, wrapping that all up into a draft plan and then moving into adoption. So for the project overview, I'm going to give you just a quick kind of overview of the types of projects that we've identified, as well as share a little bit about how that list of projects was developed, and then how they're being evaluated as well. So for the regional projects here, like I mentioned, we've got just over 20 that fall outside of one of the 3 cities' jurisdictions or are located on US 101. So types of projects that we've identified include signage and wayfinding, specifically thinking about signage to direct people to the state park, parking. We know that's a big issue in Manzanita specifically. Just really making sure that people that are visiting the area know how to get to the local destinations. We also have a number of enhancements for bicyclists and pedestrians. So the ones shown there in that green color are really focused on how we can improve the existing roadway to better accommodate people walking and biking. So not necessarily needing to build new infrastructure, but are there signage improvements that can be made, striping improvements that can be made within the existing right-of-way to dedicate space to those users. The projects shown in the dark blue are new connections. So those are connections that may require constructing some new infrastructure. And those are really focused on filling gaps in the network. So looking to create new connections off of US 101 for people biking and walking, as well as some pretty substantial improvements to existing roadways that may add new space for those users. We also have a number of safety projects identified. Those are shown in red. And a primary driver for where we've identified safety projects was where crashes have occurred. So we've looked at 4 years of crash data in the region. I think no surprise to most of you, the majority of those crashes occurred on US 101. So looking at improvements, delineation around curbs, there were several crashes occurring near some of the curves along US 101, a couple of lane departure crashes. So looking at measures that might make it less likely for that to happen. And then some intersection improvements where there were crashes occurring at intersections as well. I'll pivot on down to Manzanita so you can see in a little more detail here. The real kind of focus for the Manzanita-oriented projects was to make sure that there were connections to all of the local destinations, so to and from the downtown core, to beach, as well as the state park. So really just making sure that there's space identified for all users to connect within, within Manzanita. And then the one safety project shown there, there were a few crashes that occurred on that segment kind of between Ocean Road and Lakeview Drive on Lanita. So looking at some ways to improve safety along there, thinking about striping on the roadway, consistent curbs, things like that along that section. So how did we develop this list? I talked a little bit about filling the network gaps. So areas where there may not be an existing connection or not a connection that feels safe and comfortable for users. Safety, so looking at that crash data within the area. Also looking at LOS, they're standing for level of service. So areas where there may be congestion occurring in the region. And then also other plans that have been put in place. I know Manzanita has done some planning around trail connections. So making sure that these projects connect to the discussions happening there as well. Our ultimate goal is a prioritized list based on the goals developed for the TSP. So last time I joined, I shared the 6 goals that we have. So we have 4 regional goals, and then each city has 2 local goals that are really aimed at making sure this list of projects reflects the specific community needs. The ultimate list will consider funding constraints as well. As I mentioned, making sure that we're identifying a list that's feasible over the next 20 years. And here's just a quick overview of those goals. So the 4 shown there on the left: enhancing quality of life, creating safe connections, planning for the future, and supporting fiscal responsibility. Those are the 4 regional goals. The 2 local goals being focused around managing access and enhancing economic vibrancy. So next steps, as I mentioned, we've got a community conversation coming up. So that's scheduled for this Wednesday from 6 to 7:30 p.m. That is going to be a virtual conversation. We'll have members of the project team there, as well as ODOT. We'll be sharing in a little more detail some of the specific project components and asking for input from all the community members that join. So that is open to everyone. We're hoping to see a lot of people there and hoping that you all can maybe share that opportunity with community members that you may be interacting with over the next couple days. And the way to access that is just going to be through the project website, so nehalembaytsp.org. I'm also going to drop a flyer in the chat once I finish up my presentation that has all of the information for that event on that as well, so you'll have that. So community event this week. After that, we're going to be taking all of the feedback we hear from the community, refining that project list, working through that prioritization of those projects, and creating a draft transportation system plan from that. This project does have a planning advisory committee. We've met with them 3 times so far, and we'll have one more touch point with that group, as well as a planning commission workshop. So that will be an opportunity for us to dive into all the details of that draft plan with all of you and get your input on that as well before we move that into the adoption process. So that was pretty quick. It was really just intended to be a little bit of a teaser for the upcoming community conversation. But I will pause there for any questions that any of you may have, either about the process as a whole or the upcoming community engagement event.
Kara, this is Lee Hiltonbrand. I'm curious about your notification and wondering whether or not you've posted anything in any of the local medias or if you've posted any notices at the post office.
Layla, I will maybe punt part of that question to you to see if you've had an opportunity to share any of that, like at the local post office.
I haven't. I can hang it up at the post office, and then we sent it out through our Facebook, social media, and then also it's on the city's website.
Thank you, Layla. And like I said, I will also add that flyer to the chat, so you should all be able to grab it from there as well, if you'd like to send that to community members.
Any other questions? Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Kara.
Nope, that's exactly what I was going to say. So,
do we have any idea when the Planning Commission workshop might come about?
That will be probably early spring. So we're working on kind of that draft plan kind of January through March. So we'll be hoping to get on your schedule sometime toward the end of March or early April, depending on meeting schedules.
Okay, and since that's what you're intending is a workshop, I'm assuming you would want that to be set, or I guess I am asking, we would want that to be separate from a regular Planning Commission meeting?
Yes, that would be ideal if that works for schedules, just so we can have some dedicated time to really dive into the details and gather some some targeted input on that.
Okay, yeah, I just wanted to make sure that we kind of kept that in mind. So sometime April, probably, we might be trying to schedule a second meeting.
Yes.
Month of April. Okay, great. I'll be there. Okay, any other questions or comments on the transportation plan?
Okay. Well, thank you all for letting me join. And like I said, any effort you can make to spread the word about our upcoming community conversation. I will also note that there's an online open house as well. That will be live for 2 weeks. So beginning tomorrow and through February 10th. So if community members can't join the virtual conversation Wednesday evening, they can provide input at their own, at their convenience through the online open house as well.
Is that information on the flyer that you're going to give us as well? Okay, perfect. Great. Well, thank you so much. Really appreciate this update. This is good information, and I'm really glad to see that we're making progress.
Yes.
On this plan.
Thank you all, and I look forward to sharing more with you in the coming months.
Great. Thank you so much. Okay, so I'm not quite sure how to get a document that somebody puts. So maybe at the end of the meeting, if one of you that's familiar with how to do this could let us all know, that way I can make sure and save that document to share. Okay, so moving on. I'm going to go through all the procedural stuff here for just a second. On today's agenda are public hearings for 2 land use applications to be heard by the Planning Commission. I want to point out that members of the Planning Commission are appointed by City Council and serve as volunteers. Our role is to conduct public hearings and to make decisions about land use matters in the City of Manzanita. First, I'll explain the order that the Commission will follow to conduct each hearing. I will open one hearing. The applicant will present an overview of the proposed project. The staff report will be presented with allowances for questions from the Commission. General questions or comments will be heard, if any, regarding the proposed action or the criteria the action is based on. Then the applicant will be given an opportunity to respond to any points that are raised. And once we've gone through all of that, then I will close the public testimony portion of the hearing, and the Commission will formulate its findings and determine whether the requirements of the zoning ordinance have been met. We are interested in hearing all issues associated with these proposals. However, if a speaker repeats what someone else has said, I may interrupt and ask that you identify any new issues that have not already been raised. If you want to be on record as concurring with the previous speaker, please indicate that and then end your testimony so that we can complete our business in a timely manner tonight. In the interest of keeping each hearing focused on the issues, I'll limit each speaker to 3 minutes. The applicant or applicant's representative can have up to 15 to present the application. And with that, first application to be considered today is a request for a conditional use permit to operate a home bakery business. Before we start, there are procedural questions for the record. Are there any members of the Commission who must announce any actual or potential conflict of interest, bias, or ex parte contact? This includes site visits. So I'm just going to start from the bottom of the screen. Bert, you're on the bottom for me. Do you want to unmute yourself and let us know about your conflicts?
Now, can you hear me?
Yep.
Good. I have visited the site to the extent that I've walked by it on 4th Street many times. I have no bias. I have no, what was the other thing?
Conflict of interest?
Conflict of interest. I'm not running a bakery, so I have no conflict there.
Okay. Phil, how about you?
I have no conflict of interest, bias, or expertise contact other than the fact that I have walked by the site.
Okay, Jenna?
I have no bias, no conflict of interest, no ex parte contact other than walking by the site probably daily.
Okay. John?
No bias, no conflict, no contact, ex parte contact other than driving by the site numerous times.
Okay. Steve?
I've been by the place several times. I have had no contact, no ex parte contact, no conflict, and what's the last one?
Bias.
Bias. I'm not biased.
Okay. How about you, Lee? It looks like you're on mute.
There we go. I've walked past the site many times. I have no conflict of interest, no bias, no ex parte contact.
Thank you. And for the record, I have also walked by the site many times. I have no conflict of interest, no bias, and no ex parte contact. All right, so we have April Foster here to talk about the project.
Hello. I don't know if you can see me. I accepted the video, but my screen is black, so I'm not sure.
We can see you.
Okay, perfect. Well, I am interested in starting a small cottage bakery out of my residence to sell sourdough bread, muffins, cookies, breakfast rolls, that sort of stuff.
Okay. Walt, do you want to present the staff's report?
Are you asking me that?
No, I'm asking Walt.
Oh.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. It's very unfortunate that we cannot meet because it'd be nice to try some samples of our baking, but
believe me, I would have brought them if I could.
yeah. So I wonder if that would be ex parte or bias. Anyway.
Well, can I interrupt you for 1 second? I missed a vital step in our procedure, and I want to make sure that we allow any members of the audience to challenge the right of the Planning Commission to hear this application, or I guess by reason of any actual or potential conflict of interest, bias, or contact. I want to make sure that nobody objects.
See no hands raised.
No hands raised. Okay, thank you. I'm sorry to do that like that. Sorry.
No problem.
Okay, back to Walt.
And let me, okay, just a second here. Okay, the first case this evening is a conditional use application by April Foster. The property is, everyone knows where the property is located on 4th Street. It's zoned high density residential, which is a R3 zone. And they're requesting approval of a conditional use to operate a cottage industry. This will be a bakery. The applicant plans on using a walk-up window or a mobile rack. There will be no seating. There will be no sort of open activity as a business. Patrons would order online, probably by phone as well, and then pick up the items and be on their way. There are currently 2 parking spaces located on the property in the front, and the applicant believes that most patrons will walk to the site given the proximity to downtown. We have some, the staff report notes the definition for a cottage industry and also the applicable cottage industry section. I will just note that this is a secondary use within an existing residence. While customers will visit the site, it really doesn't have the characteristics of a bakery in the ordinary sense. There's no place to congregate or to sit or to have coffee or that sort of thing. Further, this is in effect a craft-based business. I mean, there is some artistic skill to go ahead and bake well. And so I think on balance, this particular request does qualify as a cottage industry. The conditional use criteria are found in section 5010, and the subsequent section 020 talks about the commission's authority. I'll just simply note that the conditional use is required, and planning commission has the authority to review, approve or disapprove, and may approve with conditions. With regard to the specific findings, these are found in section 5025. First item is the site is adequate for the use. There is a pre-existing residence on the property. Activity will take place indoors. With the exception of walk-in patrons, the site appears the existing improvements appear adequate to really accommodate the use. The second thing is that the site has adequate access to a public street. Again, this fronts on 4th. It is an improved public street. The applicant intends most of the folks will be walk-ups. That may be a little bit unrealistic given the weather at times. Again, this is not a formal bakery, but I think at a minimum, the site will work as long as there is one off-street parking space on the property always maintained during business hours. There is no other issue on needed housing, which is an interesting requirement here, but with the location, again, with a pre-existing business, there are no real issues on changing the height of the structures, the walls, fences, or landscaping. People will drop by, pick up the items, and move on. Again, having one off-street space would be appropriate. Under section 5030, there are potential conditions that the planning commission can apply. Most of these, based on design, are looking at a vacant parcel with a new use being established. I will just note that under the cottage industry provisions, there are limitations on hours of operation, signage, and I think these would certainly apply to the business. Otherwise, suggested conditions on building height, fencing, screening, etc., open space, I don't think really apply here. The planning commission may require the applicant to furnish a performance bond. We're looking at a pre-existing structure. I don't think that would be required in this case. And under sections 5035 to 5039, it just runs through the procedures. Applicant submits, the city proceeds with creating a time and date for a hearing, passes out the notices and the staff reports, and the commission conducts their hearing. So those are more process oriented, and applicant, staff, and the commission are required to comply with that. The final issue here is under section 5065, which is specific provisions for cottage industries. I'll just run through the 6 items here. Item 1, activities may be operated in an accessory structure. That won't be the case. There is a provision that no more than one full-time employee. Based on the applicant's submittal, it appears only the property owner or homeowner will be operating the business. Where client visits are anticipated, the commission may require a parking space on the property. Again, my recommendation is always have one off-street space available during the business hours. There is a provision that there would be no noise, outdoor storage, fumes, dust, or other emissions. I don't think noise will be an issue, as there is no outdoor storage as well. I don't imagine dust will be. I did make a comment here that baking may generate some odors, but I think generally they're probably not considered obnoxious. There is a signage limitation, which I think we need to hold the applicant to. And finally, hours of operation are limited to 8 in the morning to 6 in the evening. The only other thing I had here is that the R3 zone also allows the creation of a home occupation. I think it would be reasonable to expect that this would be the only business allowed in the residence, and I'm certainly making that recommendation. With that, it's staff's recommendation that I believe the applicant can meet the requirements for a conditional use and recommend approval subject to the conditions noted in the staff report.
Thank you, Walt. Are there questions from the commissioners for the applicant or for staff? Phil?
Couple of questions for April. I'm a little bit confused. Can you tell me how many employees would be involved besides yourself in the running of this operation?
None. It's just myself. It's just a small cottage, little bakery producing small amounts, limited quantities of sourdough, muffins, cookies. So very small scale.
Okay, there was a reference to the fact that on page 6, where it says the applicant did not indicate there would be any employees other than residents of the home. So it's just you?
It's just me, correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then another question. On page 7, it says the hours of operation, including material delivery, shall be limited to the hours of 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. Can you tell me how many days of the week that would be?
Currently, I'm trying to gauge like how I see people in the community and how busy the community is. For me, because it is just a one-person operation, I'm offhand thinking probably 10 to 2 open, and then open Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
So it's just Friday, Saturday, and Sunday that you're going to be open?
That's kind of what I'm thinking at the moment. Yeah, it's not going to be I'm not interested in doing a 7-day. As I say, it's just a one-person little bakery, and a lot of this stuff, like especially the sourdough, it takes like 3 days. It's a 3-day process, so it's not like something I can turn out every single day.
Okay, you're going to be one busy lady. Then the only other question or comment that I would have is 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. That's going to be fine during the spring and summer hours and perhaps part of the fall. In the winter hours at 6 p.m., if you're going to have your lights on at your establishment, I'm concerned about neighbors objecting to the fact that you have bright lights on so that potential customers could come to your door.
Again, I'm not interested in staying open till 6. I'm interested in probably a 10 to 2.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you.
Any other members of the commission with questions?
Karen, I've got a question either for you or for Lila. Was there any feedback from the neighbors surrounding the bakery, potential bakery?
This is Layla. I didn't get any feedback or communications from members of the public with respect to this application, no.
Okay.
Hi, this is Bert. I have a question just like John's. How many people was that notification sent to?
Scott, maybe you can jump in on the number, but I believe it was within 200 feet. And then these notices were posted at City Hall, at the restrooms on 5th, and also at the post office.
Okay.
If you can give me a minute, Bert, if you want exact numbers, I can get that for you.
Well, it was more than 3. I don't know I didn't know what the distance requirements were, but
I believe it was
200 feet should get enough to get somebody that's interested in this.
Yeah, we sent out quite a few notices for this.
Okay. And I don't know how the city operates with cottage industries, but do they require a business license?
Yes, we do.
And is that business license in perpetuity, or does it have to be renewed annually?
It's renewed annually.
Okay. What if a property that has a cottage industry permit is sold, does that permit go with the property to the new owner?
No, it's only applicable to the business. The business license is only for the business owner.
Okay, for the business owner, but the conditional use is not for the business owner, is it? Or is it?
It is.
It is the business owner that is the conditional user. And
Mhm.
if they sell the property, there it goes away. The conditional use disappears.
Correct. I believe so. Walt can correct me if that's.
No, that would be the case because normally it stays with the property. But in this case, since there is a separate business license required that is tied into one individual, it stays with the applicant.
Does it have to be specifically noted as a condition of approval? Or is that something that is normal practice in the city of Manzanita?
I think I would say it's a normal practice in this case. Also, just one other point, Mr. Went, the notice area for a conditional use is 250 feet.
250 feet.
Yes, sir.
I noticed in the applicant's submission that there was a discussion of a home bakery exemption. And this is a question for the applicant. Will this home bakery be operating under that state statute?
I plan on initially starting out under the exemption, which states that I will gross less than 20,000.
Okay, and how long would you think you would stay in that? Because that has a big effect on the effect on of the operation on the neighborhood.
Right. 20,000 really isn't that much when you
No,
break it down a month. But I'm just getting my feet wet and seeing where it will take me. So that is one way the state of Oregon allows you to start this up, is to start small, get your feet wet, see if it's something you can handle, be able to like get your equipment, that sort of stuff. I already talked to the, I forget her name, but the inspector for our county, and she said, you know, this is a good way to start. And then if you find that you're more successful than you thought, then it'll give you an opportunity to maybe move on, find a site to move a bakery into, and move out of the cottage industry.
So do you think it would be unreasonable to limit the amount of business that goes on at your site to that is permitted by the home bakery exemption? Because this is a residential neighborhood, and I can see a situation where if you were really successful, it could get kind of tough for some of the neighbors.
So are you asking me to agree to not do more than 20,000?
Or, something, some limit on this amount of business you would do out of this site.
I haven't thought about that. I just know that, grossing 20,000 a year. I doubt I'll even do that, but right now, my first year, but I mean, I don't know what that breaks down a month, but that's a little over $1,000 a month.
Yes, it's, yeah,
Which is very, I mean,
it's
when a loaf of bread goes for $10, sourdough anyway. I mean, that can put someone in poverty. That is poverty.
yeah.
So, I mean, my intention is not to build like an insane bakery and have, the masses coming. That's not my intention. I don't even want to work that hard. It's just, like I said, it's just me, so I don't have any workers. I don't plan on working a 7-day bakery. Approximately 3 days, 4 hours a day. So I don't have an answer to your question in regards of limiting my gross income off the bakery.
Okay, I think I understand what your intention is here.
Sorry. Am I muted?
No,
Okay, sorry. Lee, why don't you go ahead, and then Steve.
Great, thank you. April, first off, congratulations on your effort. I hope that this is fruitful for the community as well as you.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
I think Bert touched on some pretty interesting possibilities, and I would suggest that, being as you've approached this commission using the Oregon Home Bakery Bill as an example, that's what we're going to base our decision on. We're going to base it on the fact that you're only going to make $20,000 a year, because if you exceed that, you now have to meet a lot of criteria with the state that you don't if you stay under that limit. Is that clear with you?
My understanding from when I spoke with the inspectors that the difference is that they just come in and inspect your kitchen. That's the only difference.
Okay. Well, there may be some requirements. I'm not familiar with all of them, but there may be some requirements of the type of cooking facility you use, the size of the sink, the proximity of the sink to the cooking facility, that may have an impact on you operating the way that you intend to do now.
Right. And I already spoke with them, and I sent them my the plans of my house that shows like where my sinks are, the stoves are, and at least preliminarily, she was like, "You're totally fine. You're good."
Okay, good. As long as you're aware of that.
Yeah,
And
no, I am. But
Remember
I want to start small and just kind of work my way up and, get my feet wet. But I totally understand that there is this, the next step up, which is, it's still a cottage bakery. It's just you're inspected differently. So I am aware of the different considerations.
Okay, well, you may be a cottage bakery in the eyes of the Department of Agriculture, but again, we're looking at this from granting approval or
Sure.
denying approval of a space in a residential neighborhood and limited number of clientele. In fact, there's a piece in the code that Walt alluded to that indicates that you might have occasional client visits. Occasional to me is 1 or 2, not 15 or 20 a day. So just be aware that some of these things could be an issue for you in the future.
Okay.
And make considerations consistent with that.
Okay.
Thank you. And Walt, for you, on page 7 of your findings, it states that the SIGH, can be no more than 8 square feet. And 8 square feet, I believe, is contrary to what the ordinance, or excuse me, what the ordinance says, which is 4 square feet. Your recommendation A3 on page 7.
Right. You are right. I was looking at the 8 feet above grade. So 4 square feet is correct. If we're talking about conditions now, I would also like to suggest that the commission look at condition A1 and maybe limit the hours of operation from 9 to 3. I know April said 10 to 2, but I think a little flexibility, kind of pre and post, would not be too far-fetched. Again, it's certainly not 8 to 6, and I think that addresses some of the concerns about evening visitors, if you will. So I think it would be appropriate to go 9 to 3. And given the limited hours, I'm not certain where it makes sense to limit the number of days. Just a thought.
Steve, you had your hand raised.
I do. Thank you. April, great name for a bakery. I really
Thank
like
you
it.
very much.
Yeah, that's neat. And your menu, I'm kind of wondering, you might be thinking kind of low on how many people are going to be calling you for bakery goods, because it's a great looking menu.
Well, I appreciate that.
Yeah, that's great. So I have a question about just a residential kitchen you have, you're going to plan on doing the baking on?
No, I have a bread oven on order, and it's just a little, it's about 20 inches wide by 3 feet high that can cook maybe 9 loaves of sourdough bread. And then just a regular oven for regular baked goods like the croissants, muffins, that sort of stuff.
Okay. I like the idea of you wanted to change the hours to 10 to 2 or maybe 9 to 3. I think that's a very good idea. And the days only on the weekend. That's very smart, because you get a lot of people down on the weekend, and you're going to be a busy lady. You'll probably be more busy than you think you're going to be, and you might hit that 20,000 much quicker than you expected.
Yeah,
So,
my goal is to just keep low key. You know, I'm not interested in going big. I just want to stay like where I still enjoy it, you know.
well, I hope that worked for you. With that menu, it's not going to be low key for very long. So I just want to say congratulations, and I wish you
Thank
the
you.
best.
Thank you. I appreciate that very much.
Okay, Jenna, you had a question or comment.
Yes, I have 2. I'm a little concerned. I guess, Walt, this is for you. If we limit the hours to 9 to 2, and that includes deliveries, I'm just wondering if April, you will be getting deliveries, and I don't want
No,
to.
I pick up my own flowers in Portland and then just bring them with me here, and my other ingredients, my spices. I just typically go to Costco. I'm not big
Perfect.
enough to have anyone deliver.
So we're all
any
good
food.
there.
Yeah.
And then my other question is maybe for Walt or other planning commission. How does this differ than, well, how does this differ than the shop that sells yard art out of the garage? Because they're permitted, they have a sign on the street on Lanita that points towards their house, plus a sign in their yard. Is that a cottage industry as well?
I'm not very familiar with that. I'm sure there must be some history. Possibly Scott could help out with that, Gina.
Yeah, Jenna, that's no longer in business. But that
Okay.
was a cottage industry, and his hours were random and few and far in between when he was open.
So similar, well, not similar, but, and then do we also document as a city, do we have a documentation of who is running a cottage industry
That would be shown on their business license.
and not like a directory on the website?
I don't believe there's a directory on the website.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions from commissioners? John, did you have any?
No, I had the one question and that's been answered.
Okay. I do have a question or two. First off, I also want to congratulate you. This is a great idea, and I hope it's a success. I hope that
you.
we can together we can make it work. Do you? It looks like on your application or your letter, you say that you are thinking that ways that people order could vary, and that you might do some things. And I want to nail that down just a little bit. I think ordering by phone and, if you set up a website or something like that to place orders, I think that's a great idea. Do you anticipate having a stock of cookies or muffins or something like that, croissants, that people can just walk up to your door or your window and order and walk away with? Or are you expecting this to be all pre-ordered? The reason I'm asking is that it's a huge difference in what kind of traffic we might expect, and whether you're going to need to have a garbage can on site for people to throw their muffin wrappers into as they walk away down the, you know what I'm
Sure.
saying?
I have not committed in my mind which way I'm gonna go. I've thought maybe possibly even doing a blend of having a website and posting like what items I would have, and the quantities, and whatever maybe wasn't ordered online, then that could be, people could come up to the walk-up window and then purchase that way what remained.
Okay. I can see some building or business license questions with that, as far as making sure that if people are going to go up any steps, there's a handrail. If people are on your deck, that it's sanded or treated in such a way that it doesn't get slippery. I mean, I can see that there are some issues with that, but the main thing I'm concerned about is making sure that if people are walking up to order cookies or something, that you do have a garbage can there available for any refuse. That as I can see, I'm not going to wait till I get home to eat my cookie.
Sure.
I'm going to need a place to toss the bag or the wrapper, whatever you put it in. So that would be that's my main concern with that.
Sure.
The other is just unanticipated foot traffic. People coming up. Just I get that you're limiting your hours and you're limiting your days, and I think that's a great idea. But I'm just concerned about additional traffic in the neighborhood, especially vehicle traffic, if you only have one parking space and you're selling, just at a walk-up window. So that's a question I have, and I'm not quite sure whether it's something that we can resolve with the limitation, or if we need to resolve. That's kind of, I'm just throwing that out there to the ethos as far as a discussion point. Let me see what else I have. I have notes all over the place here. I do think that we need to require that one parking space be made available during your open hours. I know that I think Walt's language was that we should, I see, under conditions, you do say the business shall provide one off-street parking space during, okay, never mind. I think that's it for me. Any other questions or comments from the commission before we throw it to the public? Go ahead, Phil.
I'd like to pick up on the comments with regards to the refuse container. I'm wondering if the contents that are thrown into the garbage can refuse container, if they're not emptied on a regular basis, are going to attract critters that may become a nuisance, not only for April, but also her neighbors. I'm thinking about raccoons, which seem to get almost everywhere. And then we had a small bear that visited 2nd Street in the fall, and for a raccoon you might be able to deal with. I don't really know that anybody wants to go out and tangle with the bear. So I'm wondering if we're going to have disposal of refuse on the site, that it needs to be policed and brought inside on a routine basis.
Oh, that's agreeable.
Okay. Bert, did you have another question?
Yes. Question for April. There was some talk in the business plan about leaving products in a rack outside on the porch for people to pick up. Is that something that you think is essential to operate this, or could you get along with all just coming to the window and picking up to take out?
I think in this day and age, I think, with COVID, I think it's important for a lot of people that they're very into contactless pickup of items, to be able to order online and go pick it up without having to basically be in contact with someone. So I personally, I think it's a great idea. But is it, 100% necessary? No.
How big a rack would you plan to have? Have you thought that out at all?
I haven't. I know, Wolf Moon Bakery down in Halem. They do the same thing. They are 100% contactless, and they put a rack out on their porch. It's just like a rack you'd see in a storeroom. You can get them at Costco. I think they're about maybe 5.5 feet tall, maybe by 4 feet wide. And they just put the rack out and label bags, and people can walk up and pick up their stuff that they've already paid for. So that's one option. I considered like having, maybe something small built that would have some ability to be water secure, so water couldn't get in there, obviously.
How long would you think that something would remain in the rack for pickup?
Just for those hours, the 10 to 2.
10
roughly.
to 2 or
Yeah.
3, whatever it is. So you would put things out perhaps at 9 in the morning that somebody would pick up 3 or 4 hours later.
They would have that option, I guess, yes.
Okay. That seems like a kind of a risky situation with animals around and food. And the Wolfman situation that's almost in an industrial area there. There's not a lot of foot traffic going by at different, various times of the day. And it's mainly just a drive up and pick up within a couple of hours. So I'd be a little concerned about the size of the rack and how long the food is left outside, I guess.
That's what I was talking about and kind of referencing, is doing something that would be enclosed, so it would be secure.
So this would be behind your, the part, I don't know what you call it, the screen that's.
Yeah, but privacy fence.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't be visible to the street.
No.
Okay.
It's just one option. I'm to be honest, I'm completely open. I would like to see this become a success, but obviously I want to, be considerate of my neighbors and a lot of the, things that we've been talking about. So I'm open to what would work with you guys, what makes you guys happy. I'm not like dead set on one set idea.
Okay.
Steve, do you still have a hand raised?
I do. I had one question about the $20,000. So how do they determine when you reach a 20,000? That's an honor system?
Well, you have to file taxes with it. But I I don't know if I have to submit something to the Department of Agriculture regarding that. I'm not sure. But I do know that, that is on their documents that I submitted that, after the 20,000, then you have to be inspected in a different way.
Yeah. I'm just wondering how they determined that. That's since nobody stops by and it does any kind of inquiry with you.
That is a good question. I could always find that answer out.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other from the commission to either staff or to April? Then I'm gonna see if there's anybody in our audience who has a question or wishes to make a comment.
I've got one hand raised, and I'm going to promote Mark to the panel. Okay, Mark, you should be able to unmute yourself.
Hi. I just wanted to say this seems like a great idea. As someone who likes sourdough bread on a small level, I'm all for it. And from what Bert was saying about the wolf moon in an industrial area, I would almost assume it's more likely people might be prone to steal things from an industrial area than a residential. But again, that was my first thought when you said that, Bert. But I say good luck, and as a community member, I hope it works out. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Any other hands raised or?
Yes, Bruce.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Hello.
Hello. I had a hand raised.
Yep, please go ahead.
Good evening, everyone. Hello. I had a question just in general about conditional use permits. And once a conditional use permit is issued, can they be revoked, or what happens with a conditional use permit and its existence?
I'm gonna throw that one to Layla or to Scott.
I guess I'm not quite sure I understand the question. Can you?
Well, let's say a conditional use permit is issued for the bakery, and it exceeds expectations, and it's a wonderful, successful business, and it does become, I don't know, a nuisance to neighbors, or the threshold of $20,000 is far exceeded, and it just kind of grows. What happens with the conditional use permit if the business outgrows the permit?
Well, if it exceeds the conditions of approval, then the city can work with the applicant to make sure it either meets those conditions, and if they don't, then I believe we can revoke it. Walt, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I was just kind of looking through our code here. You do have a provision under general provisions, Article 11 talks about abatement and penalty. And if you're violating the, any land use decision effectively becomes part of the ordinance that is subject to review and enforcement. And so if they're violating, let's say we put in a condition 9 to 3, and they're operating from 8 to 5, that sort of thing, you can bring them toward municipal court, I would assume. But Yes, there are enforcement mechanisms.
Okay, anybody else that has questions, comments? Is that you, Steve? Did you raise your hand again?
And on the conditions approval that she maintains the requirements of the for the bakery exemptions for the state. As long as she meets those requirements, the ordinance or the application is valid. When she breaks those qualifications, then
That is a very good way of doing it. Yes.
Okay, I'm gonna hold off on that for just 1 second and make sure that we've heard from everybody in the public, because once we've heard from everybody, then we can open it to the commission to have the discussion about going forward. So anybody else?
Is it going till 6, do you think?
Do not see any hands raised.
Okay, then I'm going to close the public comment portion of the discussion, and will now invite discussion by the commission. Commission members may ask questions of the applicant, audience members, or staff, but we are at this point limited to discussion primarily by the commission members as we formulate our findings and determine the application. Let's see, I see both Bert and Lee. Who wants to jump in?
I think I just see Lee there right now, but.
Okay. I still see a little hand in your corner, Bert. I don't know what that means.
Oh, there, it's on a white background. Okay. I would, I think that we could put some reasonable restrictions on this. If it operates within the $20,000 a year gross, that may be hard to monitor, but the business hours, I think, are easy to monitor, and I think that that would put a limit on the amount of traffic in and out of the neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
And I would suggest on this that there be a sign that's within the limits of the signed ordinance, but unlighted, no lighting on the site for the business.
Okay, Lee, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I just, in reference to the previous public comment, I believe it was Bruce. As I read the conditional use ordinance, it also states that the permit has to be renewed every year, and we're allowed to continue the use for up to 6 months. So as I read it, Walt, tell me if I'm wrong, 1 year they come in for 6 months and they come in for another 6 months, etc. Is that the way you read it?
Could you identify that section, please?
Oh, sure. I knew you were going to do that.
Okay, I'm sorry.
I don't have it right here in front of me, but it was very clear when I read it 2 or 3 different times. Let's see if I can find it here. 5.039.
Okay, thank you. Basically, that talks about avoiding a conditional use. So in other words, this is to establish a use, but not to establish a structure. So let's say we went through a conditional use for a church, for example. They have 1 year in which to exercise that approval, subject to getting, in this case, a building permit. And if there isn't substantial construction or movement after that 1 year, you may extend your approval for another 6 months. So this talks about exercising the decision, and they have 1 year in which to do it. So in this case, for the conditional use, this would be, they would have to be up and running and selling baked goods within 1 year. And if they can't do it in that time, they may come back to the commission and ask for a 6-month extension.
Thank you for that clarity, Walt.
Okay, any other commissioners that haven't need any suggestions? I would like to suggest then that we look at the recommendations and conditions of approval on page 7 of the staff report and just kind of clarify our current thinking. It sounds like, and please correct me if I'm wrong, that we're leaning toward approval of this application with some conditions. And let me back up just a little bit and say that this is kind of the first of what might be many of these kinds of applications that come through. And I want to be careful about setting precedents. And so for that reason, I'm going to suggest that we add a 4th under A, and the conditions of approval, and that would be that the business would operate under the conditions established by the Oregon Home Baking Bill. And I think, April, I'm hoping that this is successful, and I'm hoping it's able to grow. And if you do get to the point where you need to install a commercial kitchen, or that you want it to, to exceed these expectations, but still work out of your home, that you would come back to us, and
Sure.
we could take a look and see how's it going, how's it happened. Have there been any complaints by the neighbors? Is it working well for you? And that way we can maybe fashion a conditional use for a more permanent home bakery situation.
Yeah.
It's kind of an experiment for us, and it's an experiment for you. And I want to just make sure that we don't get way ahead of ourselves and approve this that we'll regret down the road. Not you, but the next one that comes along, we may regret.
Sure.
So that's my only reason for caution here, is that this is kind of a new thing for us.
Right.
So I would clarify that the 9 to 3 hours of operation, including deliveries, if you ever have any, that seems reasonable. Yes.
Are you asking me?
Yes.
Yes, it does.
Okay. And that the one off-street parking space be available during operating hours. I think that should be a given.
Yes.
And then the signage would be basically follow the sign permit, one sign on the building. And we don't allow any illuminated signs anyway. I guess you could have a spotlight on the sign, but we don't allow any kind of, open signs or, illuminating kind of signs anyway.
Would I be, instead of putting a sign on the structure, be able just to do like a little sandwich board on my property?
The answer to that is no, because it's very specific for a cottage industry that you have the sign on the wall.
Okay.
No, I understand what you're driving at. And I think also the recommendation for unlighted would be supportable by the fact we had some concerns raised over lighting within the neighborhood. So just clarifying that it is unlighted. Yeah.
Okay. And then, so I would suggest that okay. So I'm still a little bit concerned about walk-up sales. But I'm not gonna fuss too much about it unless the rest of the commission has a concern. And by that, I mean people just coming up to the window when you're open and buying cookies off the shelf. It doesn't sound like that's something that you necessarily want to do, but it might turn into that. So am I the only one that has a concern with?
No, Karen, I had some concerns initially about that when I read the proposal, especially with the sign. Without the sign, a lot of those concerns go away. People are walking up to a house and they're walking away with something, but nobody knows what it is. However, with foot traffic on 4th, especially in the summertime and in the evenings at McGregor's and the neighboring art gallery that's open some days, it just sends a message of, oh, look, here's a bakery. Gosh, let's go scope it out. And while I applaud the opportunity to have more baked goods here in town, it just sends a concern to me that there will be a lot of walk-up traffic. Unintended, but I think it's going to happen.
Yeah. Hopefully, you can consider putting your hours on the sign, your open hours and open.
Oh, sure. Yep.
I think that might help keep people off your porch
Right.
when you're not open, but also maybe eliminate some of that idea of extra traffic that you don't really want.
Well, and if I understand you right, well, in my mind, I'm thinking of, okay, there's a sign on the house, but like for me, I'm like, that sign comes down when it's closed.
Yay.
That'd be great.
That's
Because
good.
I don't want anything permanent on my house. Like if it's not open, it's not open. I don't want like looky-loos or curiosity or anything like that. I just, in my mind, I'm imagining like having a sign that I can hang up, and then when shop is closed, I could just pull it off and walk it in the house.
Excellent. That's a good solution.
That's good.
That's a very good solution.
Karen, the sign, if she does do a sign, online sales only on the sign would eliminate anybody walking up and trying to buy something off the street.
Yeah, we can't,
And work on.
just so you know, we're not allowed to say what can be on the sign.
I would suggest that, not a condition, I would suggest if you put online sales only, that would eliminate that problem.
Or, yeah, phone orders or something. But yeah, we don't get to say, we can't even say you have to put the name of the business on the sign.
Thank you, Walt.
Because of First Amendment issues. So
Mhm.
any other comments or concerns or questions about conditions of approval or recommendation for approval or disapproval?
I'm a little concerned about window sales, because one person walking up to the window and buying something and leaving would not be a problem. But if you had 10 people standing in line waiting to get a cookie or a whatever, then it could be approaching a nuisance situation in the neighborhood.
I agree with you, and I'm taking all that into consideration, not only for my neighbors, but also, again, I'm only one person, so I can't like bake and have all this stuff and tend to like a lineup, and I don't intend on having dozens of cookies available either, unless someone were to phone order something special, but just to be for a walk-up window. That's not my intention. It's on a smaller scale. I'm not trying to go big. I want to, and if it's when I sell out, the window's closed, the sign comes down, the day's over.
Okay. It just has really nothing to do with, with our discussion, but the farmer's market would be a great place to sell larger batches of cookies and things like that. If you wanted to do individual sales, just
right.
I'm sure you're aware. I'm sure you've thought. Okay.
Yes.
All right. I think unless there are other issues that we need to bring up, we should probably move toward a resolution here because we need to make sure we have plenty of time for Jim and his project.
Karen, may I suggest that I just provide a summary of the recommended conditions?
Sure.
Okay. Condition A, the business shall be subject to the following operational requirements. Item 1, hours of operation, including material deliveries, shall be limited to the hours of 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. Item 2, the business shall provide at least one off-street parking space during operating hours. Item 3, signage shall be limited to one unlighted removable sign attached to the wall of the residence and no more than 4 square feet in area. Item number 4, the applicant shall continually comply with state requirements regarding the home bakery. Probably have to wordsmith that one a bit, but just to make sure they are complying with state law. B, the approval shall be limited to the proposed bakery as a cottage industry. The applicant shall be prohibited from establishing additional cottage industry and or home occupation on the site. And finally, D, compliance with these conditions shall be the sole responsibility of the applicant.
Could I make a suggestion? Instead of adding a number 4, under B, could we say this approval shall be limited to the proposed bakery as a cottage industry under the conditions established by the Oregon Home Baking Bill?
I could certainly, that would work out real well.
Okay.
As I said, I would have to do a little wordsmithing, but yes.
Okay. Any other conditions or concerns? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion. And if you notice on pages 7 and 8, there are 3 options for a motion that we might consider.
Karen, I move to approve the application for the cottage industry bakery on 217 4th, adopting modifications and the conditions as read.
I'll second it.
Okay, any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Say no. Okay, April, it looks like you're in business.
Thank you so much. I so appreciate it.
When do
Thank
you
for
open,
your
April?
time. Thank you.
When do you open?
Well, I'm still waiting on my ovens. They're coming from Belgium and they've been on order since last summer. So hopefully they'll be here sometime in the spring. So that's obviously right around the corner. So yeah, so I have to be patient for the ovens.
All right, well, we'll be patient with you.
Thank you guys so much. I really appreciate it. Will I be receiving any document to look forward to?
You will. You'll get a letter from the city that describes what happened and what what the conditions are.
Okay.
For the approval.
Thank you so much.
Yep, you bet. You can.
Made my day. Thank you.
You can feel free to stay and listen to the next one if you like, or
okay.
Go inside and start baking. Whatever works for you.
All right. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Do we need a quick break, or is everybody doing okay?
I would not be opposed to a quick break. At least
Okay.
I could say hi to my wife who just walked in.
Can we say maybe a 3-minute break? Is that
That'd be great.
good? So see you all here at 5:30.
3-minute break.
No.
Well, I guess it could be. At the door closed, I don't know. This might be all right. Might be some noise. I have to fix that.
John, have you read all the books behind you?
Probably 80% of them, yeah.
How about you, Phil? Have you read all those books, or are you at the library?
Definitely not.
I'll buy those and they may sit on the shelf for 3 years, but then maybe longer than that. But eventually I get to them.
Yep.
Hour and a half.
On one shelf,
Bakery.
and don't you have 2 or 3 others?
Jim Pence. And then develop.
Jenna, are you here in town, or are you on vacation somewhere?
I'm in town. This is my new house.
Yay.
Yay.
Your neighbors are good friends of mine. Very, very dear friends of mine. Yeah. So you're gone in February. Did you respond as far as the February meeting date?
I did not respond to February. I will be available if needed, but would prefer to sit out since I'll be on vacation.
Okay, we looked at a different date though. Did
I
you
saw that as well.
Oh, you're going to be
I will,
gone for
I will
both
be gone
dates.
then. Yep.
Okay. Okay. Great. Well, yeah, with I think Bert was going to be gone on the 14th too, and that's too many to count on a quorum, you know, in case of COVID or whatever. So if we can change it to the following week on that Tuesday, that would be great. And we'll plan on you not being there unless we need you.
Thanks.
Oh, sheesh. It's 5:31. Okay. Is everybody back? Everybody? Okay. So the next application to be considered is a preliminary plat for the Highlands subdivision of 30 additional residential lots to be developed in 2 phases, part of which is in the special residential recreational zone and part is in unincorporated property within the urban growth boundary. The application requests that the unincorporated parcels be annexed to the city. Before we start, I want to ask, oh yeah, Highlands, I did say that. Okay, procedural questions. Are there any members of the commission who must announce any actual or potential conflicts of interest, bias, or ex parte contact? This includes site visits. And rather than doing the runaround, I would just ask if anyone has a conflict to announce it. Otherwise, I'm going to assume that there is no conflict or bias or ex parte contact, including site visits. Okay, so I'm not hearing any. I'm going to ask if any members of the audience wish to challenge the right of any member of the commission to hear this matter by reason of actual or potential conflict of interest, bias, or ex parte contact. So Layla, do we have any hands raised?
We do not.
Okay. Then I'm going to turn it over to Jim, and I see a picture of Jim and the name Jim. So I'm assuming one of you is Rick, but am I wrong?
Actually, Karen, it's Jim. Rick is locked out for some reason. He can't get on the call for whatever reason. He's locked out, and which he'll blame me for, I'm sure, but that's okay. And my video, I don't know. I can't get it. I just clicked on it and it wouldn't go either. So I don't know what's going on.
Hey, Jim, I don't know if you can hear me, but if you can, yes, I do blame you, and I'm here.
Oh, excuse me, Rick. Okay. Let's see, go start your video. Okay, wait a minute here. I just got a link here. There we go.
Okay.
There we go.
Oh, there, both of you are here. Okay, lovely.
We're both here.
All right, who wants to talk?
Well, you know, you can explain pretty much what we're doing. I don't have a lot to add. Maybe Rick, do you want to add something to that and explain what our new neighborhood is called, I guess?
Sure. Since we were short on time, I was going to say we want to build some houses on some sand, but I think I'll elaborate a little bit more and say that the new neighborhood is going to be called Hilltop Neighborhood for obvious reasons. And as Karen, as you mentioned, it is 30 homes, 30 home sites. This will essentially connect the two previous neighborhoods, the Seaview neighborhood, which goes up Seaview Drive, and the Meadows neighborhood, which goes up meaning north, Meadows Drive. It will connect the two together and provide homes across what we call the top or the north end of that portion of the property.
Okay.
And I would just add that half of it's in the SRR, half of it's in the UGB. It's about 15 lots each. And what we're trying to do here is add quality lots, larger lots. We're not trying to cram a lot of lots into this area. We've got some very nice lots there, but they average in size from about 9,000 square feet to about 15,000. So they're pretty nice large lots. That's what we're going for.
Okay. Walt, what do you have to say on your report?
Oh, thank you once again. We second hearing this evening is for the actually a two-part here. It's annexation and also subdivision. We're looking at property in 3 different zones. Special residential recreation, the SRR, also medium density residential, which is outside the city and within the UGB, and also commercial C1 zone, which is located at the north part of this project. The applicant wishes to annex about 4+ acres of land that's currently designated R2 into the city. This land is located on tax lot 1401, which is kind of laid out there. And upon annexation, the site is automatically rezoned to the R2. Subsequent to the annexation, combined with other property in the C1 and SRR zone, the applicant intends to build a 30-lot subdivision on approximately 9.82 acres. This will include the extension of Seaview and Meadows Drive, 13 lots in Seaview, the remainder on Meadows. There will also be, you can both effectively dead end at this point, but Meadows Drive can be extended in the future for the remainder of that large parcel. Meadowview Lane will be constructed to connect the two streets extensions and public facilities are available, will be provided within the right of way. Lots range from about 7,800 square feet to over 22,000. Most of the lots, actually about 16 out of 30, exceed 9,000 square feet in area. So these are fairly significant parcels. Applicant requested that the SRR portion be developed under the R3 zoning regulations in terms of lot size. And also, just for the record, single-family homes are permitted in the R3 zone or SRR zone, C1 zone, and also the R2 zone. As I noted, this is going to start off with annexation, and we do not have any annexation requirements in our municipal code. Effectively, by default, we look at state law, which is ORS 222, chapter 222. I'd just like to know for the record that I contacted the community development director in Tillamook County. They're not opposed to the city looking at the subdivision portion that is in the county. They recognize that the land is in the UGB, will probably be annexed at somewhere along the future. And their only comment was to make sure that you would, if approved, you do not review a plat until such time the property is annexed. I'm going to break this down going through the annexation. And there's an interesting glitch that in the SRR zone, even though this is the straight ahead subdivision, there's also a requirement that they go through the planned unit development process. So we will touch on that as well. So I will be looking at we'll start off with the annexation, go to the planned unit development, and then finally finish up with the subdivision. Annexations, as I noted, are under ORS 222. Statute does not specifically say the Planning Commission may be part of it or is excluded from looking at the matter of annexation. We reviewed this with the city legal counsel, and we felt it best that the Planning Commission be a part of this entire discussion. This is consistent with legislative type actions that you're involved with, such as zone changes or code amendments, and therefore you do have input to the final city council decision. And I will note that if the annexation is ultimately approved, the council will need to adopt an ordinance on this matter. Just note for the record, the city council has various options in which to address the recommendation of the Planning Commission. They have the opportunity to hold public hearings, or they may refer the matter to the voters. So that's entirely up to them. The main issue, I think, for concern or with the Planning Commission is under ORS 222.111. It just simply notes that allows boundaries of any city may be extended to annexed territory that is not within the city, but is contiguous to the city, or separated by public right-of-way, stream, lake, whatever. So essentially, the city has the right to annex property that's within the UGB that is next to the city limits. And that's really the key requirement in terms of a planning question. The property owner submitted a request to annex. The subject property, which is tax lot 1401, is adjacent to the city limits, is located within the urban growth boundary, and services can be extended to serve this parcel. Effectively, this is urbanizable land that can be annexed and certainly suitable for urban uses. The remaining provisions in 222 just have to do mostly with the city council's options to go ahead and determine whether or not the land is annexed. So I want to say just the key issue here is the land adjacent to the city limits? And is it in the UGB, and is it serviceable? And this piece of property meets those requirements. As noted, moving on to plan development provisions. This is a bit unusual. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this. This is a bit unusual, but they are required in the SRR zone to go through this. However, the applicant is not requesting a plan development. They're proposing a conventional single-family lot subdivision governed under the R3 zoning provisions. This is well within the options available for the SRR zone. There is no material need to make any modifications to the layout, to the points of access, to any other requirements. And I'll just summarize by noting that the land is certainly suitable for the proposed use. The proposed use is consistent with the expected zoning of the R2 zone and also the residential development within the vicinity. Most of everything else on the plan development provisions have to do with procedural requirements, and this hearing before the Planning Commission is certainly consistent with that. So at this juncture, it appears that that portion of tax lot 1401 could be annexed to the city, if so approved, and also the SRR portion of the project can meet with the plan development requirements. So now we go on to the actual subdivision. Ordinance 95-5 provides those requirements. I'll just simply note that the applicant submitted the necessary plans, information, and it complies with those requirements. With regard to some details here, there will likely be two distinct phases. Public facilities will be extended to serve the development, and engineering plans will necessary and also must be approved by the city. And there are no particular additional requirements with this application with regard to grading, geological hazards, or wetlands that were required as part of the process. The key issue comes under section 38, which goes through the details. And this goes on for a number of pages, but I'll just summarize. I think the findings will show that this application does meet with those requirements. With regard to the streets, both Seaview and Meadow Drive will be platted and provide access to all the proposed lots. While these are effectively dead-end streets, Meadows can be extended in the future to serve the remainder of tax lot 1401. The streets meet the minimum width requirement and also will conform with any improvement requirements by Public Works. The streets are currently, they do continue the existing street pattern, and the connecting street, Meadowview Lane, intercepts both streets with a T intersection, and it's more than 200 feet to the previous intersection to the south. So it does meet with those requirements. No other street extensions are planned other than Seaview and Meadows. All the intersection angles, in this case with Meadowview, are at T intersections. There are no existing streets adjacent to or within this project that require improvement widths. There's no need, we determined there is no need for reserve strips, as one is going to be dead-ended. The second street, the Meadows, the applicant owns the adjacent property. There are no half streets, no cul-de-sacs, no alleys in this project based on the submitted plan. Slopes were identified as being less than 15%, and each lot contains certainly a suitable building site. Also, Public Works did not identify any limitations or issues with regard to constructing the streets. The layout does not include any marginal access streets. The street names will likely continue with the existing Seaview and Meadow Lane. And finally, there are no private streets within this project. Um, Section 41 talks about building sites. Basically, the layout, I think, appears logical. Each lot will have direct access to a public street, generally rectangular in shape, given relative size with some right angles, certainly suitable for development. Now, with regard to the particular zones, the SRR zone, as I said, is being developed under R3 provisions. Minimum lot area is 5,000 square feet, 40-foot width, 90-foot depth. These requirements apply to lots 53 to 57 and 60 to 65. Based on the submitted site plan, those lots do meet or exceed all those standards. With regard to the R2 zone, which is the property being annexed, again, we have similar requirements in terms of minimum lot size, width, and depth. Again, all those lots, in this case, lots 68 to 80, comply with the R2 zone requirements. Finally, within the C1 zone, there is provision here that in the C1 zone, single-family lot must comply with the R2 zone requirements. Again, 5,000 square feet, 40-foot width, 90-foot depth as minimums. This applies to lots 58 and 59. And as you can see by the submitted plan, both lots greatly exceed those minimums. Finally, lots 81 and 82 are located partially in the SRR zone and partially in the R2 zone. This area width and depth requirements are the same for both zones. So I concluded that the lots are more than sufficient to conform with the requirements. Moving on, all lots have at least 25 feet of frontage along a street. There are no through lots in this case. Lot lines generally run at right angles. There is sufficient land available in each lot to develop the site. There are no subdivision blocks in this case. There are no remaining large building sites. Everything is being used with, there are some exceptions for some tracks for, I think, part of public facility improvements. Beside the remainder of tax lot 1401 is located within the county and would require annexation. We have further requirements on water courses. Again, drainage requirements will be addressed through the submittal of engineering plans. With regard to right-of-way dedication, there is no apparent need to reserve blocks of land for public use. You do have the right to deny a subdivision if it's unsuitable, but I think there's sufficient information here to indicate that it can meet the requirements. No apparent flood hazard or wetlands issues on the property. And finally, when it comes down to the surveying requirements, if approved, the applicant and the city are required to conform with those requirements. I'm thinking here 2 decisions will really need to be made tonight. One will be a recommendation to the city council on the matter of the annexation. Again, what occurs at the council level, they will need to determine how they plan to process that, either through a public hearing, a public vote. That's entirely a council matter. Just note for the record, the recording of a plat containing lots 68 to 82 cannot occur until such time the underlying property is annexed. And I noted that with the county, they accept that, and we have to bring that into the city. In the recommendations, I think certainly this is suitable urbanizable land that could be annexed, and recommend that the commission recommend council approval of the annexation. The second item would be looking at the subdivision. Again, staff sees this as they've met the requirements for the subdivision, lot sizes, streets, improvements, and all the planned development provisions that would apply. It is again our recommendation that the planning commission approve that as a separate action. Just noting for the record that platting of proposed lot 68 to 82 shall not occur until such time the underlying property is annexed to the city. And with that, that concludes my staff report.
Karen, you're on mute.
I need a handler. Thank you. I was calling for questions from the commissioners to either the applicant or staff. Is that John? Did you stick your hand up?
Yeah, I finally found that thing on this screen. One question, I want to pin something down here for certain. On the attached map, tax lot 1401 is not labeled. I take it that that is a section of land that contains lots 68 through 81. Is that right?
Did you want me to answer that, or is Walt answering?
Walt, or you, or just somebody who knows what's supposed to be on that map, because I looked all over that map and I cannot find any reference to tax lot 1401.
Okay, 1401 is the R2 zone portion, and that is the, see, I have the map right here with me. Yes, that is the portion that's 60, was it 68 to 82? Part of that, I think part of lot 81 and 82 are within the SRR2 portion, but that's the basic location.
Okay, so we're only looking at annexation of tax lot 1401, is that correct?
Just that little piece in the corner of 1401, and it's about 4.06 acres.
Okay, I just wanted to pin that down.
Okay.
Okay, Lee.
Yeah, I've got a question for Jim and Rick. When would the annexation need to be complete for the uninterrupted platting of that 4.06 acres?
Good question, Lee. I would think realistically, looking at the work we have ahead of us, getting the materials and what have you, we're probably looking at April.
Okay, so a follow-up question to that, but certainly related. I can't imagine, well, I won't say that. I won't say I can't imagine. What happens to the project if the city council denies annexation?
Well, that would be very disappointingly. I mean, we've looked at this. We've talked to everybody involved. I don't see a reason why they would deny it or not want to annex it. I can't imagine what that is. So I really can't answer that question.
Well, my question is not about why, it's more about what happens to your project? Do you then go through the county for that portion of the project?
That would be one area that obviously we'd have to look at, sure.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Did you have a question, Phil?
A couple. Thank you, Karen. Can you tell me, and this could go to Jim or to Rick, what the significance of tract K, L, and M are?
What they are is common area. You said track L.
L, K, M is so small, it's kind of meaningless.
Okay, so L is common area.
Okay.
Okay. The one there, track M is small. That's common area as well. Track N is future. And what was the other one?
K.
Okay. That's common area also, common open space. And if you were up there, you would see that that's the slope. So there's no reason to put a lot there or
Right.
to, that's the slope that goes all the way along Classic Street there. So
Okay.
that's what that is. One?
Can you tell me what happens to, I guess what I'm trying to connect in my mind is the Zoe Potts property, lots 58 and 59.
Correct. Yep.
They're part of this development and yet they're owned by somebody else?
Correct.
Have they had input with regards to where your driveway fire turnaround easement is?
Of course, yes.
Okay.
I could not have added them to this if they didn't agree. And the reason this turned out the way it did is because we looked at this several different ways. And originally we're going to have Seaview come up and go to the east where Meadows Drive is, headed east into the UGB. And we looked at that, and that would mean that the lot 200, I believe it is, these two lots here, they wouldn't have utilities and they wouldn't have access to that lot, making it very, they would have to bring utilities up from 101. And for Rick and I, we looked at it and thought it was it was neighborly and the right thing to do to bring the road up there to access the two lots that Zoe Potts has up there and bring utilities up to it and include it in what we were doing, rather than leave them without a way to get utilities. It's a lot easier to add them where we are right now than to come up from 101, because it's a long ways and it's quite a climb.
I appreciate the thought on that. I assume that the E2 easement that services the Reinhardt property functions as well. They've had in.
Could you ask the question one more time? I'm not sure that I caught that.
Have the Reinhardt family had an opportunity to see the E2 easement that you have provided for them?
They were a part of it. Yes, they have.
All right. Thank you very much for thinking in the future for those folks.
Sure.
One last question. In past development discussions on your properties, folks have commented with regards to the wildlife that has been moving back and forth across your properties. These open tracts, are they part of trying to move or allow for wildlife migration?
Well, I got to be honest with you, Rick and I, and Rick, if you want to add to this, you can, obviously, but we're leaving an awful lot of common area. We're leaving open areas because the elk do come through, but I got to tell you, to be honest with you, Classic Street Cottages has had elk on the porches of the cabins. They are going to go where they're going to go. But yeah, I mean, leaving common area like that in our minds helps, but I don't think that, you know, that we can guide the elk any particular place, or they're going to go where they're going to go.
Yeah, correct.
You know, I can add one thing to that. It's, you know, as Jim said, it's not like putting up a deer crossing sign and all the deer are going to cross right there. It's just that we have noticed that the area, the large 4-acre area between Seaview and Meadows neighborhoods was clearly a place where they were coming in and out and congregating. And sticking with both that thought and our kind of mantra that we don't want backyards backing up to each other where we can avoid it. It just seemed like the right thing to do, and we're trying to continue that through the rest of the development.
Thank you for doing that. One last question. On Seaview Drive, I noticed that you have a driveway fire turnaround easement. And it appears to scale about 15 feet wide. Did the fire marshal have an opportunity to have some input with regard to the width on that?
I talked to him, it's not 15, it's at least 20. And
Okay.
it meets the requirement for sure.
Thank you. That's all I have.
Jenna, you got your hand up.
I just want clarification of the tax lot, 1401. If the city council or city approves that to be annexed, and it would just be for the platted lots, it wouldn't be for the entire tax lot?
No, the request is only for the platted lots. And it's about
And then-
4.06 acres. If they want to bring any more in, they have to have a separate annexation request.
And would we need, okay, and why would we not annex the entire lot?
I think it's a timing issue. I think I'll let Jim answer that. Also, I'm going to guess, well, my experience is usually taxes.
Okay.
And that is exactly the reason. Not only that, but we haven't exactly nailed down what we'd like to have in the rest of the property and what's going to happen in the future. So we want to, take our time, plan it, and the taxes would go up quite a bit. So
Yep, understood.
that for sure.
And then one other question is, I know that your streets got rearranged a little bit from when we first looked at this. Is the idea that Meadows Drive would continue to be the street to connect to Nicarni on the east side?
That's correct.
Okay.
It will continue on, and that's the way we planned it. We're going to continue on like we had originally planned.
Yep.
Yep.
Perfect. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Bert, did you have comments, questions?
Yeah, I have a kind of a procedural question. Are we expected or being asked to approve the annexation as the planning commission and forward that to the city council as one of the steps?
Actually, at this juncture, you would only provide a recommendation to the city council. The commission does not have any authority to approve or reject an annexation, but you are providing a recommendation. So that is one of the reasons I'm suggesting dividing this into two decisions, one specific to the annexation as a recommendation that will go forward, and the second one with regard to the subdivision layout.
Would the subdivision layout be conditional upon the city going ahead with the annexation?
That is correct, as it only applies to lots 68 to 82. So in
Okay.
other words, the portion in the city may still be platted.
That's my question.
Okay, Steve, did you have a question or comment?
I do. Thank you, Karen. Jim and Rick, I want to compliment you on what you're doing there. I've walked up there several times. It's really great looking at all the open spaces and the homes you're building. It's outstanding. I want to thank you for all your work doing there. My questions are directed towards Dan, I think, and maybe Walt. Walt, on your finding of facts on page 8, paragraph C, the findings, you say on there that Discussion with the Public Works Department indicated services can be provided to the site. And then you say this may additional improvements. So is there may need additional improvements or?
Thank you very much. That is correct. Need or require, either word would work.
Right. So that's my question is, and my concern now, actually it might be out of place here, but I'm concerned about the stormwater and how the city plans on handling and dealing with all the additional stormwater. If they have, they got 29 more acres there they're going to be developing. It's going to develop a tremendous amount of stormwater. How are we going to direct it? Where is it going to go? Do we have any idea what the cost is going to be for the city to provide this service for this construction?
I think I can answer for you there, Steve. So as far as the city goes, it's not a cost to us for their development. It's also no additional addition to like our outfalls. They had to do in the very beginning for these different phases an actual drainage report. And so that drainage report took everything in that area that they were looking at designing and labeled it as Basin A. And you notice there's a pond, a retention pond that they constructed that they turned over to the city, which is now also called Pond A. And so as part of the report, it looked over everything and says, okay, this is the amount of roads essentially that are going to be in that area. This is the amount of impervious surface that's going to be the city right-of-way area. And so that stormwater then was calculated for the pond. The pond itself wasn't just a hole that was dug in the ground and called good. They had to go through tests of infiltration to make sure, water would drain out of the pond, the rate of drainage, and the rate of drainage then designated the size of the pond. So far with our rainy season, I don't know if anybody noticed, water comes into that pond and like almost instantly gone. So it's been doing its job quite well. This phase will fall under their Basin A in the report. So once again, not a cost to us. They have to do as a plan development. They have to carry the costs of all of the utility construction.
Well, this pond, that's going to serve the existing development plus the proposed development?
Yes.
Is that pond going to be for other areas that you're going to be constructing, developing?
I'm sorry, Steve, you cut out.
That pond going to be proposed to be used for further development besides what we're dealing with here?
I believe in the report, they are allowed pretty much what they have in once they complete this phase. It's Basin A is essentially this completion of this area. So as they move to the east more, they'll have to come up with another study and a drainage pond and stuff to be associated with that.
Correct.
And
they are going to plan on using holding ponds for most of their stormwater?
For the way that the geographics are for this project and stuff, that's pretty much all they can do is ponds up in that area.
Okay, so that then the question regarding the ponds is that do we know when we collect this much volume of water in these small areas and it percolates down, how will that affect groundwater and the wetlands in the vicinity?
No, we don't have any reports that would designate what it does with the groundwater in there. The rain covers to the ground. We're channelizing it to essentially to the lower point, which would be the same as drainage would be. And that requirement is not is a requirement that we wouldn't require on any projects of the city.
I noticed on there they talk about the engineers designing the how you're going to handle the water. So there's nothing in those reports how these ponds will affect subsurface water and the wetlands. Then
no,
there are wetlands just on the Pelican on the east side of the first hole, and
yeah,
that water drains out down near Carney Boulevard out to the ocean.
Yeah, no, to try to track the subgrade waters, we would have to analyze the whole city on that. So I couldn't tell you, Steve, what where the groundwater goes from there. I mean, that would be a very, very expensive report. I can tell you that part.
Okay, but I guess you answered the first question. All this, the water is going to be contained in ponds on the developments there.
Yep, and those ponds after construction and such are then turned over to city. So as it is water coming off then public right of ways into the ponds, and now the ponds to become a public right of way. So, I'm sorry, become city property.
Okay, thank you, Dan.
Yeah.
Let's see, who haven't we heard from? John, did you have any questions?
No, I don't have any now.
Okay, Lee, did you already have your opportunity? Who did I miss? Did I miss anybody? Okay, I have two questions. First question is, in this common areas, do you anticipate that you'll be logging or removing the vegetation that's already there and replacing it with something else?
No, we're trying to leave, as you know, the trees, the shrubs, what have you. Kind of like to leave that natural. The open areas that we have, we want to have grass growing there, and we want to have trails through them. But we don't plan on, replanting, re-landscaping the areas that are already green.
Okay. Second question, you requested that this project go through under the R3 development standards. And the reason for that is you want 55% lot coverage rather than the 40% that an R2 would do. Is that correct? So building bigger houses.
I believe it's a requirement of the SRR zone, isn't it, Walt?
That is correct. The option would be that if you want to develop a conventional subdivision, it is through the R3 zone.
So could someone technically build a triplex on one of these lots or many of these lots? Or are you intending them only to be single family?
Let me just check my code.
Or duplex, just like any other standard lot.
R3 is three dwellings to a lot. I'm just curious because, as you know, there's a tremendous lack of housing in this area, and building more units per lot would be, especially with lots this size, would be a really good thing to do.
The R3 zone allows single family and two family. A multifamily, no more than 3 dwelling units. Minimum lot size is 5,000 square feet for a single family or a duplex. But there's an additional 2,500 square feet per additional unit. And that's kind of interesting. So it looks to be like you need 7,500 square feet minimum. So there is some options on the property, and that's right out of code.
But my question really is, you want the larger lot coverage, the 55% lot coverage, larger homes, smaller yards.
Actually, we're not going for larger homes. We're going for larger lots, more open area, and duplexes or something of that nature to us would be good, because it gives the homeowner more options, I guess, because and Rick, you might comment on this because you talk to more of the people that are coming in, but the surprising part to me is we have very few people. It used to be a few years ago when I was doing Classic Street cottages and the like, everybody wanted to short-term rental. That's the number one question they ask: can I short-term rental it? We're not hearing that, or I'm not hearing that anyway. So most of the people that are coming here are looking for a home to retire in or to have as a second home to work part-time. Would you agree with that, Rick?
Yeah, I would say that relative to the STR question, I talk to every person who buys a lot there, and I think I get that question 10% of the time, something like that. And of those people who are purchasing, I currently, if you get 2 requests for permits, at least based on what I'm hearing, I'd be surprised. Now, maybe they're not telling me, but that's not going to be an issue. The other thing, though, that we have found is that there are a number of people, more than we had expected, who are buying to make this their permanent residence. And they are leaving. The one thing that the pandemic has done for us is it has pushed the issue of people working from home. And we are seeing a number of people. I get a lot of requests from people who want to work out of their home. And because of that, the requirement for the home size is larger. And they need the extra office. They want an extra bedroom that they're going to make into an office. They want to have a place for their grandkids if they're retirees or whatever it happens to be. So when we started, we thought we would have a glut of homes requested, and we had them available through our partner builders at 1,200 square feet, 1,150 square feet, et cetera. I think there's been 2 of those homes built. 3 homes of that size built so far. Everybody else wants 2,000 square feet or more. I'll also add, and forgive me, I don't remember the number, I can provide it later. When we set it up, there's a maximum size for these homes. You cannot build, this will all be annexed into the HOA, and you cannot build, say, a 5,000 square foot home. I don't care how big the lot is. You'd need to have some kind of special approval. I believe, Jim, do you remember? I want to say it's 3,200 square feet.
I thought it was 3,000, but again, I'd have to look to it because that was.
It's right in that neighborhood, which I admit is certainly not a small home. But what we're finding is people coming from Portland or elsewhere who are trying to replace their family home. I've got friends this way too. It surprises the heck out of me why people want to retire in the same size house that they had with all their kids, but they do. So no offense to anybody here who is doing that or has done it. But nonetheless, we do see a lot of that. So that's where that requirement came from. Plus, these are, honestly, folks, these are the premium lots in the development, and the people who are going to want to live there they want space. They want to have some of their own room, and that's where some of it came from as well.
Well, I'm glad to hear you say that you've put a limitation on the size of the home, because if you've got a 12,000 square foot lot and a 55% lot coverage, you've just defeated the whole point of having open space around you. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Agreed.
Okay. Jenna, did you have your hand raised again?
I just had a note about, we've touched on ADUs, and that's a subject, and I don't know how that moves forward in response to Karen, your note about we need housing.
True.
Well, I could comment on that. I love the idea. I really do. I think it's needed. I wish that we could do more of that.
The other thing too, I'll add, is that you may recall when we came to you for the original village at Manzanita, there was discussions about the people who are going to work there and that sort of thing. And it is, let's just say that we are fully cognizant of the crisis, if you want to call it that, for people who need housing. And let's just say I don't think this is the last we'll talk about it. It's just something that and for me personally, it's near and dear to my heart for a number of reasons I won't bore you with right now. But basically, we're aware of it and understand that as people who own and control a significant portion of available land, there's some responsibility that goes along with it. We understand that.
Okay. Anybody else from the commission? All right, let's throw it open to the public. Are there any members of the public that want to make a comment or ask a question either of the staff or the applicants?
I see no hands raised.
Have we received any letters or communications?
We have not.
Okay. Still no hands raised. I'm giving everybody time to figure out how to make it work. Okay. In that case, I'm going to close the public comment portion of
Sorry,
the
Karen.
session. Oh, do we have somebody?
Yeah, Joe just raised her hand. I'm gonna
Okay.
Promote Joe.
Are you there, Joe?
Hi, yes. I just had a follow-up question to the one that Lee asked early on to Jim, I guess. What exactly why exactly do you need to be annexed? And wouldn't you just be able to build the same homes on the same lots by applying to the county?
Yes, that's true. But I've talked to Layla and I've talked to others in this city, and they kind of look at it like, if they're going to serve water and police and or need to do that, then we should annex it, and we are agreeable to that. I don't know that. I mean, we could go to the county, but I believe the city has to weigh in on it. And for Rick and I don't think we're interested in going against what the city would want. So I would say that we've given our word that we will annex these lots. There's no reason to change from from here. And again, I don't know a reason why the city wouldn't want to annex these lots. I could be wrong, but
Jim, could I add something to that, if you don't mind?
Sure.
We consider this whole thing a partnership between it's public-private partnership. We're obviously the private part. And as everyone here who has been around and watching this knows, the Planning Commission is not against saying no when you feel that it's not right, as you have done with us before. We didn't get mad. We didn't tuck our tails between our legs. We went back and retrenched and listened and came back again. We do ask when we want to ask, and you all know that because we've done it. However, we don't really give ourselves a whole lot of permission to do the ask if we can't give you something when you ask. So at the same time, if it's going to be a partnership, it's got to work in both directions. So what Jim said is absolutely right. To ask you for water rights or something else and not get any of the tax revenues or whatever is going to come by annexation is not really the fair way to do it. And we do understand that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Anybody else in the public?
Not at this time.
Okay, then I'm going to close the public testimony portion of this discussion, and we'll invite discussion by the commission, who may ask questions of the applicant, audience members, or staff. But we are now to the point where we're going to limit discussion primarily to commission members so we can formulate our findings. Any discussion? Hearing none, let's look at the recommendations that Walt provided for us. I'm looking at page 15 of the staff report. I think this is where you want us to go, right, Walt? To look at the annexation issue first.
Yes, yes, indeed.
Under number 8, Roman numeral 8. We have the option to recommend that City Council approve the annexation, recommend that they approve the annexation with any modified conditions, or recommend that the city deny the annexation. So let's start there. Questions or comments, or would anyone like to make a motion?
I guess I have a question for Layla. Layla, from a political standpoint, do you sense any reasoning behind us recommending it with a provision that there be an open discussion with the citizenry of the community?
Sorry, what?
Well, one of the options we have somewhere in here, I can't find it right at the moment, but we can, the council can hold court, if you will,
Yeah.
with the citizens.
Oh, you're asking remanding it to the citizens for a vote?
Not a vote. No. Oh, help me out, Walt.
Basically, I made a suggestion that for you to consider that as part of your recommendation, if it's to recommend that the council approve the annexation, that they conduct a public hearing as opposed to a vote. That's not essential with the core of your recommendation. The reason for my suggestion, being in planning for a long time, a lot of blood, sweat, and tears and money goes into establishing urban growth boundaries, and the expectation is that those properties will eventually be annexed into the city. I've just seen a lot of knockdown, drag out issues when everything comes to a vote. A lot of people done a lot of heavy lifting to get the UGB where it is, and seem to be appropriate that to go ahead and have the public hearing as opposed to voting on each and every piece that comes in. But that's just my suggestion. It's not a requirement, and it's certainly not with the core issue of whether or not it should be annexed.
Thank you, Walt. That's very helpful. So Layla, it's about a public hearing, I guess. Do you sense some value in our including that as a part of a recommendation that council consider that?
Yeah, it's not uncommon, I think, for there to be public hearings when annexations are being considered by council. But I think within the limits as Walt has described, so the council's making the decision ultimately.
Yeah, I wasn't interested in the public vote, but you know, no matter how hard you try and we try to share information with the public, there's always the outcry at the end, why didn't I know? And I just think another opportunity to, I mean, attendance tonight is an example. You know, what we have 6, 8 people. So there's another 300 or 400 people out there that are going to feel like they didn't know about this. That's why I think it's important to consider it.
Mm-hmm.
So Lee, are you suggesting that we recommend that the city council hold a public hearing on annexation rather than a vote? Or are you just suggesting that we recommend the city council approve the annexation under whatever terms the city determines?
Well, in this case, we're dealing with 2 properties, right? That's it. So I don't think there'll be any guff or any backfeed about that, but long term, it's important, I think, that everybody weigh in and have their opportunity to express their concerns and feelings and pros and cons. So I think that this is a good way to start it, even though it is only 2 lots, and clearly there's support to approve it at this time, but recommend to the council that they consider some public hearings. Yes.
Okay, I think council has to. I don't think they can make a decision like that without a public hearing, without an opportunity
Concurred.
for public input. Yeah. Okay. So hearing all of that, if there's no further discussion, would someone like to propose a motion on the annexation question?
I move that the commission accept the annexation, recommend to city council the approval of the annexation with the caveat that public hearings should be part of that process. And adopting the findings in the staff report.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, motion carries, and we're going to recommend that the city take up annexation. Okay, and then the second part of this is looking at the subdivision conditions. And again, it didn't sound like I heard any suggestions that the staff report be amended in any way, adding any additional conditions. Is that correct?
Correct here.
Okay.
I didn't hear any.
Okay, would anybody like to make a motion regarding the subdivision plat?
I'll make a motion that we approve the application for subdivision, adopting any modified findings under conditions.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Second and a third. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. You now have a preliminary.
Thank you very
subdivision
much.
plan.
Thank you all.
Good to hear.
Okay, that said, what do we have on the upcoming list? Layla, do we have anything?
We do. I'll let Scott jump in because I know of one, but we have two, I believe, items coming up for February.
Okay.
Yeah, I already have scheduled, we're going to secure the wineries coming back for another awning on the second floor. And then we have a request for a variance. It's a residential structure that had storm damage. And when they went in and did the repairs, they added some height to the structure, and they're asking for a variance to allow it due to setbacks.
Okay, so a design review and a variance.
Correct.
Okay. And I want to pin down the date.
I've got it scheduled for the 22nd.
Okay, let me just double check my calendar if I can find it here.
That'd be the Tuesday after that was recommended.
Right, 22nd. That date works for everybody?
Works for staff.
Here it is.
Okay, then we'll meet again on February 22nd. We've got two issues on the agenda already. Let me add one more thing. I believe that our planning commission guidelines tell us that we're supposed to elect a chair and a vice chair every year. And we kind of forget to do that from time to time. So I want to add that to the agenda for February as well. It should be just a really quick thing unless we have a fight over over who gets to talk more than anybody else. But so I do want to add that to the agenda. So think about if you want to make any changes in their current structure, plan to duke it out on next month. Jenna, did you have something to add?
I just wanted to follow up about our ADU discussion. I know that we worked hard on that this spring and summer. What is the procedure moving forward to get some decisions made and get it adopted into code? I know that's in conjunction with some short-term rental changes as well.
The only thing that we've determined at this point is what we made recommendations for ADUs in the urban growth boundary, nothing inside city limits at this point. We have our long list of things that we want to, how we want it to be, but we have not attempted to craft the language that would put it into ordinance form.
And aren't we required for the urban growth boundary, not
For the
city
urban
center?
growth boundary, right?
We're required to do that like a few years ago.
Right.
And we haven't done it.
Correct.
So what is are we going to do it?
Well, the last time we talked about it, our intention was to wait until we had a couple more items to change in the zoning ordinance, because it's a long process and expensive process to do. But I think, Layla, don't we have one other thing we wanted to correct or change in the zoning ordinance, and maybe we need to get this moved up?
I had a proposed small change to the subdivision ordinance, which is separate from
the zoning ordinance.
Yeah.
Okay.
And is it separate from the short-term rental language that was drafted?
Yes.
It is separate. It wouldn't be done. So it wouldn't be done at the same time.
Correct. They would be, we don't have any input on the short-term rental. That's a purely city council issue. But you're right, we do need to get working on that. And I'll talk to Layla and Walt about that. And because everything we did precedes their tenure.
Mm-hmm.
And we did let the ball drop on that. So I appreciate you bringing that up, Jenna. Thank you. Anything else?
Yeah, I would just like to comment and provide my thanks, and I think all the commission members share that. The thanks to Walt for providing incredibly detailed and complete reviews and findings for all of these processes that we would otherwise be struggling with. So I thank you, Walt.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
The last thing that I had made a note of is that there should be a flyer somewhere for the transportation plan meeting on Wednesday, and I don't know how to get to it. So
I emailed it to you, Karen.
Oh, thank you. Did you email it to the whole commission?
No, but I can. It's in the chat as well. So if you just click on the link, you should be able to download it.
And it wouldn't download for me. So if I could get an email, that'd be great.
Sure. No problem.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. I think with that, it's 6:41. We've done our duty, and I'll adjourn the meeting. Oh, wait, I can't. I need a motion to adjourn.
Well, I'll make the motion.
Okay.
I'll second it.
John made the motion. Great. I'm going to assume everyone says aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right.
Definitely agree.
See you all next month. Thank you.
Take
Thanks,
care.
everyone.